Hey guys, that's what we're building today. But first, I think what we're going to do is paint everything. So I'm going to put a light coating on the underneath, just in case any of it is visible somewhere. The wheels I'm going to paint gloss black to match the other wheels that I got from Boom Racing. But the rest is going to be flat black. So I think everything should be dry enough to start. So let's go. Trying to read what it says here, and well, I wear glasses already, and my vision isn't 100% even with my glasses. I had to use a magnifying glass. So those are M2 by 10 with M2 nuts. Some of the screw holes have a little bit of paint, or maybe a little bit of excessive paint, so you might have to push the screws in, or even you might have to screw them in, but they do go through. See this one, I can't push it in, so if you just screw it, it'll go through. This isn't a bad thing actually. The paint actually holds the screw in place to be able to put the nut on. So while it's painted and you have to maybe do a little extra work, it still works. And you see, now I'm at liberty to put the nuts on without really having to hold anything in place. So once I'm done, I'm going to go through and Loctite, put a dab of Loctite on each of the joints. As I mentioned before, some of the screw holes you need to actually screw in because of the paint. It still goes in pretty easy, but you won't be able to push it in by hand. Now this piece here requires a lock nut. So don't over tighten this. You sit it, leave it there. It shouldn't come off because it is a lock nut. I should have gone through the instructions. I mean, I went through them quickly before, but I didn't notice this. I was wondering what the designations for the screws were. BT being the flat tops, BY being the socket caps with the shoulders or the unthreaded areas, and LJ is the regular socket cap one. So everything's pretty darn small, so you gotta read and make sure you follow the designations for the screws, or you're gonna run out like I just did. Like I assumed certain screws were this or that, so I'm gonna go back and change them, and then I'll continue. Now in their instructions for this part here, it's gonna be hard for you guys to see it, but it says gasket. Now I'm assuming what they mean by gasket is a spacer / washer. There we go. Oh, nope, I missed it. Let's see if I can get that in there again. It's a bit tricky, but I got it in. Sorry if you guys can hear my printer going. So just tighten and leave it there. The nylon lock nut will take care of the rest for you. It's got an NLJ 8mm that goes, an LLJ 8mm that goes here. Might have to screw it in. Again, same reason for the paint. Oh no, so it went right in this time. Hold it like that. And these have their own little areas for the nut. You don't even have to hold it. Just put it in the hole. Should fit right in. There we go. Adjust it. Okay, these are the BT, I believe. Yeah, BT 5mm. Right there. Alright, so like I was telling you before, the paint is holding stuff in place so that, you know, we can go in and easily attach the nuts on the other side. Now there's no room again for the tool here, So we got to hold them in with a pair of pliers. Right, time to put the axle on. Okay, so the axle goes like this. So if we flip everything together, so they say it goes like this. And which screws do they say? It says M2 by 6 by 8. So it's the NLJ. NLJ is the socket cap. M2 by 8. Unless you're putting bigger tires on. When you're putting bigger tires on, it says to use these as spacers in between here. But since I'm using the stock wheels, I don't need them. Let's get this in there. Don't tighten everything just yet. I suggest you put all the screws in. And then tighten afterwards. Oops. If I could get it in. Now we can tighten everything in place. So far so good. It's not too bad. If I had gone through the instructions better before, I would have known which screw was which. And I wouldn't have to change anything. But personally, I think a little legend of which screw was which on each page might have helped. So I keep going back and forth figuring out which screw is which. But no, the chassis is pretty much done. I just got to put the rear bumper on. And then we'll get up to the camper area. So keep watching. So for the rear bumper, it's the M2 by 8 again, with some the nuts obviously. The bumper actually locks right in, so it makes it a lot easier to work on. So see, I can actually work on it without worrying about it falling off. There seems to be a little bit of a issue or error design. I don't know what the deal is. These holes here are supposed to be the same shape as these. In other words, a hex shape to accommodate the nut. They do not. Now I have some longer screws that I have in my stuff, so I just put an M2 by 10 in order to be able to use it anyways. Okay, well, the chassis part is done. Screw and a nut. There's a bunch of these on here. Some of the stuff is really small. I guess this is what you get when you want something scale, right? So let's get these in. Take note that the lenses are directional. This is the right. If you look, I don't know if you can see it, but right here there's a little R. So, and obviously you need to put it upright. So it would go this way. And the left side. I think the last time I worked with small screws like this was actually on the Orlando. So the fender flares require 4 BT M2 by 12 and BT M2 by 8 and 6 M2 nuts. So there's no, they're both identical, symmetrical, so there's no right or left to worry about. Looks like I'm gonna have to do a bit of touch-ups over here. The glue I just put in basically leaked through, so not a big deal. It's flat black, so it's easy to cover up. To put the racks on to the top part, you need 8 M2 by 8. Socket caps with the nuts. You start by putting the center ones on, because the end ones here are put on at the same time as the small pieces. So we'll start with this guy. We'll put all the screws on, and then we'll tighten everything up. Pay attention, the side rails have some holes in them. The holes go towards the back. The tent supports require the M2 by 5s, the BT M2 by 5. Then, in order to mount these to the rack, you need the BY M2 by 10, a washer, and the lock nut. Okay, you got to tighten these so that they're fairly stiff and it doesn't move when it's up. This here, you adjust them to whatever length you need when you're setting up your tent. You might need a bit higher, a bit lower. And tighten this up just a little bit more. There we go. When installing these supports, pay attention to putting the screw head on the inside and the nut on the outside, with the little extension here on the inside, so that it won't touch anything as you're using it. Okay, so it's time to get the hinges on. Put these hinges on now. Go here and there. The BT M2 by 5. Alright. That works well. Nice fit, actually. Now, for something like this, that's got to be glued on here, what I do is I put some glue on a piece of something, a piece of paper, a piece of plastic, doesn't matter. You take a screwdriver and you just coat it all around. Probably overshot there. So I ended up putting too much over here. Obviously I'm going to need to do some touch-ups. Same thing for this one. Just try not to overshoot this time. Yeah, you see, did it again. Trying to work too fast. I'll just do a bit of touch-ups. It should take care of it. Alright, so now we have some even smaller hinges to put in with 1.5 by 4 screws. These little arms, the instructions don't really tell you, but there's this little sleeve that you need to put in with the M2.1 by 6 screws. Those go right here. So they screw on with M1.5 by 5s, 6 times. I seem to have run out of lock nuts. So I'm going to take them off a certain area where they said to put some and replace them with regular nuts. Because here I can just put Loctite and they'll never come apart. So I'm guessing you may have this issue as well. You may not have enough lock nuts to cover everything, and there are certain places where the lock nuts have to be there because you can't over tighten in order to keep the movement going. So basically I'm taking these ones and putting regular nuts and keeping the lock nuts for the other part. Alright, so I got the Loctite on all the screws. And I can go ahead and mount this where it's supposed to go, which is on here. Alright, now these guys have indications as to what they are. 2, 3, and 1. There's notches right here on the edge. 1, 2, and 3. So I want 2 and 3 right now. The reason is if you look at them, they fit inside one another. So that is going to go here. Seat it like this. Don't over tighten, just, sit it right and then back it off a little bit so that you can get the movement. Alright, so you got those inserts again. Go here. Get it in there. Okay, so I got the bushings in. It wasn't easy, but I got them in. Now, you see, now we have an issue. Because they don't tell you in what order to put things together in, I may have an issue putting this screw in without taking this off. Well, let's try putting it in anyways. Oh, it actually went in. I think these go on top of here. Looks like I don't have a choice but to take it off again. So, if you do put these on first, well, you have to put these on first because otherwise you can't get to the screws here. And when you do put it in, make sure to lift them up So the order of things here, so you got this plate here, you got these pieces, get them in order, so it's 1, 3, and 2. That is what's written on the tags here, on the slots here. And you have the storage area, if I can get it. For securing the box to the chassis, it's M2 by 8 with an M2 nut through these holes here. Let's get one of these in here. You can see the chassis mounts to the inner holes. The outer ones are for the other tent part. So you can't really mess that up, because if you do, then you're making new holes. Alright, so that's mounted. Looks pretty good so far. Actually, the glue spillage here makes it look like some water drained or something. So I might just leave it like that. So here you got the M 2.1 by 6. This is to mount on the truck. Put it in here. You can adjust the height. And then this is your hitch. You can adjust the depth. Let's put the ball on. The foams seem a little big, but let's see what happens when we put it together. Alright, so the trailer is finished. It took me, give or take, probably about 6 hours, but I was filming at the same time, so it might not count. There's a certain level of difficulty involved in building it. I wouldn't recommend it for beginners, but right now, let's put the tent on so you can see how it's done. The fit and finish is pretty good. So much so that the paint causes some things to be a little tight, as you just saw. So first things first, lock that in. So you get that, right? Then you get the legs, come down here, the support legs. This piece comes up like this. There's little notches in the top here, barely noticeable, but these little latches go in there. And then you got the tent supports. So the order, once you look at the pins here, it's like 1, 3, and 2. So that's how it's going to be. But you're going to have to replace them anyways. So let's get the tent out. Like I said, the fit and finish is pretty tight. So you gotta, especially with the paint, I might have to scrape some of the paint off over here. So you get the tent inside. You could probably store some other stuff in there too. So this goes back down here. Alright, so that goes there. And the tent, now there's a really short elastic and a longer elastic. So the shorter ones go in the front because the rear ones latch onto the bumper. So what we're going to do is put it on top like so. And it goes around here. It's not that easy to get on, but it's not too bad either. So you get one hook there. Stretch this out now, see? It's just like a real tent. It's not always easy to pitch a real tent, so why would this be any different? So once you get those in, you gotta pull it forward. Make sure the edge of the corners are connected. And what you need to do is you need to pull this up to here. So it's quite tight. Let's get this side on. Wow. Let's see if I can hook this piece on here. Alright, so that's there. These ones don't seem to latch on too well. And these ones need to be brought down here. Which isn't too bad. Okay, so that's in. Doesn't really latch on too well on here. Yeah, doesn't really catch on too well. Yeah, well, it's pretty tight, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Okay, now once that's done, basically open the panels or doors or whatever you want to call them. And then inside, you have to place and there you have it. It's pretty much. Now it kind of pulls on it, so it's not sitting as far as it should. Let me latch this piece back on here. This should help. There we go. Okay, now that's good. Just these ones that don't want to hold on to anything. Okay, it's holding now. So that's what she looks like. Gonna look inside. All right. So that's pretty cool.